Good afternoon, and welcome to another Super Secret Project sketch. This is Eric Whalen from Super Secret Project X. And this is my last sketch during the staycation series. I will be shaving tomorrow. I have half evolved from partially wearing PJs and partially wearing pants. So I'm beginning to burn out entirely and turn into a beautiful phoenix before I go back to work. That I need some coffee because it's warm and I've been relaxing for a long time. My whole system is like...
So because it's warm, you're going to drink a hot beverage.
There's physics involved. All right.
Physics of coffee, I suppose.
Doing what I can. All right, today, because it sounded like a good idea last time. And I still think it's a good idea, but I'm also thinking Popeye Donald Duck image at some point in time might be hilarious. But we did... No, not Catra. Duck Dodgers
Yes.
last time. And this time we're doing Donald. Donald Dodgers. No. What, yes?
No.
Almost sounds like a good idea there for a second.
But I did see somebody did a fan poster. Donald Duck actually has a superhero
It's from the European comics, wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. It's just, shoot, it's like it's PA something.
No.
No. Hey Joe.
No, we'll be back. I just will be clean shaven and likely wearing more clothes. But we're doing Donald today.
There, he's the Duck Avenger in the American comics, and everywhere else he was known as Papernic, Phantomius, Super Duck, PK, Super Donald, and Phantom Duck.
Phantom Duck.
Yes.
That might actually be cooler than Darkwing Duck, actually. And I like Darkwing Duck, but Phantom Duck, that's
pretty
it's
good.
nice and simple.
Remember, I actually wanted to do a Punisher Duck parody and called him Cluster Duck.
Cluster Duck, that's a good one.
I still want to do that. Donald from Invasion by the Moon People.
I know. It's so funny. It's like you always get the fanboy arguments. What's better, DC, Marvel, blah blah blah. And another one clearly is Disney, Warner Brothers. But I just look at a lot of characters and go like, they were all so good. They were a little different. And when Mickey was lame, Mickey was lame. When Mickey was good, Mickey was really good. Was just as good as Bugs Bunny. It's just that Bugs Bunny had more of the great cartoons in a row. But like the Adventures of Donald, Mickey, and Goofy, the good ones, those are really funny.
One of my favorite ones was when they did the Ghostbusters. I don't know if they were going.
Did I ever see that?
No, not Ghostbusters like the 80s Ghostbusters. They did a cartoon where they were, I think it was like Ghost Hunters or something like that.
Okay, I was about to say, this doesn't sound
It
familiar.
was from the, I want to say, late 50s, early 60s. And I had one of those, like the projectors that you hold up to your eye and you
sure.
crank and you put the little cassette. No.
Oh,
no,
the
that's
other
remaster,
one.
Yeah.
The other
this
one,
one was
yeah.
it was like almost like a really small VHS tape. And you put it into this plastic little projector thing, you hold it to your eye and you crank it, and it does like the animation spin wheel thing.
Sure,
and it
yeah.
has like, it was like almost the entirety of the cartoon was in this little cassette, and that's like the only one I ever had. And it was, Donald, Goofy, and Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and they were hunting ghosts in this haunted house. and it was really cool because it was like this really cool, just it was so clear and pretty as for that type of technology. And I remember watching that as a kid and then rewinding it back and going back and forth with it.
Sure.
And I that was one of my first exposures to animation as a serious little kid. I want to do this because I would literally sit there and like go frame by frame and then try and draw out what I was seeing
Sure.
on that thing. Um,
Well, that was I think a lot of us. It's so funny. There's a handful of things we all wanted to do. You know, we all wanted to be animators. We all wanted to do comic books. We all wanted to make video games. Or, you know, we all wanted to be the special effects, like latex rubber 80s movie people. You know what I mean. And so many of us were so talented, but never honestly really fathomed how difficult some of those jobs really were.
oh yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm not doing comic book stuff anymore, because it was killing me. And I've gotten considerably faster, and I've kind of considered sort of playing with that idea again.
Right.
But it slaughtered me in my 20s. I was the Walking Dead. There was just, it was not working. And
Well, the thing is, you got burned out because you wasn't getting the support that you should have had, and that
Would have been
that
nice.
that would burn anybody out. You were expected to basically be the leader of the group, to do all these drawings, to do all this stuff, have all this product done, follow this, follow that, and yet no one else, everyone else wanted to be the rock star, but no one wanted to do the work, and that was
the rock star ain't crap.
yeah.
The rock star means nothing. There's nothing about me anymore that wants anything like that. I just want to do art, have fun, and have the people that it will mean something to maybe come along on the journey, you know?
Joe says he remembers that device. Yeah, yeah. It was a white, like I said, it was a white thing. It was like had a kind of like a triangular, almost rhombus flat shape with a handle, and it had a little cassette that you would stick in the back, and then it went from wide to narrow, and then of course you looked through the narrow part and had a yellow. Mine had a yellow crank that you would hold and. Yeah, I love that thing. I don't even know where we got it from, but I just know that I had it. But yeah.
And it's not that a lot of the people we were working with, I'm like exactly mad at them, as much as just sort of a little disappointed is. And I really mean no offense, but there was a lot of like people wanted to be rock stars. I wanted to do the work and build something.
Right.
And I wasn't. The rock star thing was a horrific side effect, I guess would be the right word. And it was just like I wanted us to get someplace and build something really cool. It just turns out that's not my skill set. It's like, you know, that required like a business person to do that, and I still to this day struggle with that stuff. You know, I can do art all day long, and I can tell stories and do this and that, and I think I'm pretty good. But business-wise, that's I think where we really honestly failed.
Well, business-wise and just communication in general.
Communication was definitely a failure.
A quick side note, because we are doing it, do you want me to put the air on for you so you can get cool while you're doing it?
No.
Okay, just making sure. Speaking of
But yeah, it's not like a lot of people I was involved with I'm mad at or anything. It's just one of those things where you kind of go like, I wish I would have understood what they'd actually wanted out of it, because after all these years I realized that clearly we wanted entirely different things.
Yeah.
You know, I guess there was more they wanted. I guess sort of. And I don't want to sound awful, but like ego strokes. I think they wanted, you know, social value or something out of it, and I was going like, all right, I'm an antisocial hack. That's the core. That's the base Pokemon of Eric, and so it's like,
I choose you.
yeah, Fortunately, Lashida Ketchum, you did bonk me over the head and trick me into your Pokeball. Um, but yeah, it was just a shame that maybe I could have handled things better, and maybe I could have gotten them to, I guess, concentrate on actually building something. Because there was all these times where, and I was doing a ton of work, and I was kind of sitting back looking at a lot of other people having all this open time, not doing a lot,
Yeah.
and I was just going like, look, I kind of expect everybody here to pitch in.
Well, from what it's like, what you were saying, how like
Good lighting,
the
being very kind.
people wanted to be, what is that? That was like an old school hand recorded the crane. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's like with what was going on with that, at least from what I could see from being, I honestly, I was the outsider of the group.
Which was a shame because I never wanted you to feel that way.
I tried to do something by being an editor, quote unquote editor of everything, but I never got a chance to actually edit anything because it was always everything just went right past me. I hated to say it, but I was literally just the girl of the group when it came to some things. But anyway, it's like a lot of that, the others that couple of the others, there was one guy that was really cool still before he left out. It was like they wanted their names to appear.
Which is, I get it. I'm not like totally booing that or judging that. It's just one of those things where you just end up going like,
Pardon my snacking.
a lot of that stuff has to be put aside when you're trying to build something initially. And there was all this opportunity, whereas I was wanting everybody to like start in and work on their thing and get their thing going, and we could all kind of like work together. And but instead, a lot of it just ended up always on my freaking shoulders. And it just broke me. It just absolutely broke me.
Joe says she did the reverse caveman to you. She bonked you on the head and dragged you back to the cave.
Thank God. I like it in the cave. I do. I like.
There's no dinosaurs trying to eat you. There's fire.
The only water that's dripping on me is supposed to be coming out of the ceiling. But yeah, it's not that I hate any of the people I used to deal with. It's just I wish that I could have figured that out earlier, and maybe I could have done things better. And
Honestly, no, because the way things went, there was obviously a plan that we were not involved in. So things happened the way they were supposed to, and it's sad that it went that way, but that they were not ready. Not good enough for it. Yeah, we've had that too, honestly.
oh,
Yep, we've been there too, and trust us, Joe. It sucks, but honestly, the best way to get through that is to basically give them an FU, the finger, and prove them wrong.
That's the thing, though, is I don't like handling things like that. It's after all these years, I've decided that I'm not angry, I'm not hateful. I'm just really just kind of disappointed. That's the thing that really, because everybody involved, there was a reason why I got everybody in the group, because everybody was wonderfully talented. I just don't think everybody's head was in the game, and I understood that the game was probably going to go for a decade or whatever until we figured stuff out and this and that, and and it just didn't work. So now I'm kind of, and not that I'm excluding the little lady, but I am working on my projects as much as I can to push them forward, and where we come together, that's
exactly, and you're not excluding me because you do ask for my opinion. I'm your sounding board on a lot of stuff, as you are mine. We bounce ideas off of each other all the time, and it's like
Yeah.
we're in this together. And to me, I'm like I'm content with what we do, because we know for a fact that even though we're doing we do our own stuff occasionally, the fact that we still have each other to sound off on, that right there is great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just a real shame because, like, we had people, and in many ways I still respect a lot of them. Like, for example, Tracy, he had some ideas that were so funny.
Yeah.
It's just so stunningly hilarious. One of which I almost want to do. It was so good, but I don't want to take it from him, you know. And it's just a shame because I was kind of like, I couldn't figure out how to get people to move forward on it, you know, like create a platform. We had one that was a novelist, or he was trying to be, and it was just the whole time I was going like, write novels.
Yeah.
We'll see about getting them, you know, laid out, and cover images, and sold or at that time it would have been published, but yeah, it's kind of where I'm at too, man.
Yep. Yeah, and
When are you two going to swap positions? I'm actually trying to get her to do her own stream a week. So I do one and she does one, but that's really in her court. She has to commit to do that because I agree.
Honestly, this is going to sound kind of self-defeating. I get a little penciled tongue-tied when it comes to public drawing.
That's why you do it for practice.
As much as I love doing it, because I'll sit and draw in places when I go, like, getting the car fixed, or when I was taking the train and all that, waiting for the train, I would just sit and whip out my sketchbook and draw for a bit, and I don't mind. It's just that there's just some times where, like at conventions, it's one of the reasons why I hardly do sketches at conventions, because I'm just like, I freeze, or it takes me forever to do so, and normally it doesn't take me that long.
But like, watch the first 20 or 30 of these that I did. Some of those sketches were square out bad. I've gotten better, but some of them, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just did it. Basically, my whole way of doing things is I fail until I don't. But I just keep doing until I get something to work. And
when is Eric gonna play Ed McMahon to your drawing?
oh, right. I know. We were just watching The Golden Child, and there was all the Eddie Murphy, Ed McMahon jokes. The universe aligned up on Ed McMahon today. Awesome. But yeah, I mean, it took me a long time just to be able to get my head wrapped around just streaming once a week. And then there are the weeks where I'm not feeling so hot. But before, there would be weeks where I just couldn't get my head into the right place. And now I've generally gotten there. And I think the sketches and how I do the sketches on camera work pretty well. Honey, it's just, I think you just need to honestly do it. Because to be completely honest, I'm forcing this to work. You're actually charming. I'm a weird Muppet thing. You know? If this was Bavaria 500 years ago, I would be the weird hermit that the villagers would show up with pitchforks and torches, certain I was like, you know, a wizard or something. You know, I'd be burned at the stake in a month. You know, you're far more charming than I am. I fake it well enough.
Oh, you'd be burned at the stake. I wouldn't even be allowed to be near the stake. I'd be
Stakes are for white people only.
You have to be this white and this witchy
You have to be this
white and this witchy to burn at the stake. Well then.
That's Marvel is.
So, I would have been the one probably like getting told to bring wood to the for the pyre
Yeah.
and all that crap,
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, trust me, man. I've been wanting her to. That's a good one. I've been wanting her to. Yes. Yeah, and I'm in your court, dude. I've been literally picking at her for as long as I've been doing it, which is like 3 years now,
Yeah, around
something
3
like
years,
that,
yeah. At least 2.5.
something like that. And this is on Twitch, so since I don't have the pretty eyes and the huge rack, so to say,
Huge assets.
huge assets, thank you. I'm not going to probably ever really pull a huge crowd, but what are you going to do? I know what people go for. I don't have it. So I'm going to do what I can, and hopefully the people that are interested, thank you for showing up, by the way, are...
Much appreciated.
Well, I'm doing it. I mean, really. Yeah, the staycation, I finally got to finish. Oh, okay, not all the shows because I don't watch all of the DC shows, but I finally got caught up on all the ones that I do watch. And that was nice. That was nice. Last season of Flash did not end with a season finale. It ended with a to-be-continued cliffhanger-ish. It wasn't hugely a cliffhanger, but it was a bit of a cliffhanger. You know what? Now that I'm starting to sweat, maybe we could turn on the air conditioning. Yeah, because it just started getting...
Well, I think it's also your coffee.
I figured I used logic.
I know, me and my darn logic.
You and your female brain magic.
I know. What I can do is, because this seems to be relatively quiet.
Actually,
enough.
yeah, just keep it away from the microphone.
Yep, that's
because
okay.
I'm actually starting to glisten.
Yeah, and I actually noticed you were sweating like 10 minutes ago, so that's why I turned the air on.
Yeah, don't normally do that. The coffee isn't even that hot. You're right, it's probably the coffee, but I didn't think it was that hot.
Well, you've been sitting and chilling out in a by the sunlight for most of the day with just the fan on you. So, and then you walked away. Your body's kind of like, hey, where'd all the cool air go?
Hey, where's the airflow?
Can you feel that?
Hey, fluffy mankins, where's the airflow? Yep, it's perfect, sweetie. Thank you. Fluffy mankins.
That's your stripper name.
Well, that's one of my stripper names.
Oh, of course. Because normally you have a nice cool bottle of water with you, so.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Woo-hoo.
I've been like snaggy. I just had a granola bar. I've been snacky today, man. I told you, like, I was like just hungry most of the day today. Necesito la comida. Joe says, I'm happy to get one person all live on YouTube. Yeah, that's about us too.
The best I think we've ever done was about 3 or 4.
I think we had 5 at one point.
I think we had 5 at one point.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, man, I'll be super honest. Easily 50% or greater, we've had 0. And I've done 80, 90 of these. We got to be getting, maybe I'm even around 100 or more at this point. And that means I've done like 50 hours to 0. And is what it is. But personally, I put this under like personal discipline, where it's like, no, when you were a kid, you wanted to be a cartoonist, and if no one wants to pay you for being a cartoonist, darn it, I'm going to do it for myself. You know, and maybe we can get the money thing happening at some point in time, you know.
I mean, honestly, it's like
Maybe the fact that I'm not doing porn is a problem.
well, honestly,
If I have my wife's permission, I'll consider it.
yeah, there's.
I don't know.
It's the from what I've seen, the money is good, but the fans are absolutely crazy.
Oh, I've heard some nightmare stories. Well, the simple fact that the fandoms for children's shows are way more manic and crazy than they should be. Then you mix the contents of porn into that fandom, and I can only imagine the napalm-like effect you might have on some people's psyche.
Yep. It's yeah. It's like, and trust us, we like adult content.
I don't actually have a problem with it. I just don't do it.
Yeah, don't have a problem with it. Whatever creams your Twinkie, whatever flips your light switch, as long as you're not hurting anybody or yourself in it.
Yeah, there's people out there with a overly energetic love of football that borders on like a porn addiction. So
Yep.
I don't really see the difference, personally. Skinny Esco says hello.
Hello, Skinny Esco. Welcome.
Welcome.
Sleeping
I
in
apologize
reverse.
for my unshaven nature. I am currently on staycation.
Joe says cough Steven Universe. Yep.
Oh, I know. Steven Universe. The thing is there's so much about that show that I really love, and I get why people are all kind of crazy over it. But the degree the craziness gets to me is that I'm like going like, ooh, guys.
He says, Skinny Esco says, love the Batman.
Oh,
I think that was the Bat Metal.
I was about to say the
Yeah.
only one I've done is the Bat Metal one.
Yep.
Thank you. I also, and I think I actually need to put them together. I also did a Bat Metal Candace from Phineas and Ferb. And I really think, honestly, the two of them should just be face to face. Because I want to see Candace and Batman get into a knuckle fight. I think it would be funny.
She's just swinging her arms with that scream that she does.
Yeah, that like total like tween girl freak out thing that she does. Batman may not be able to keep up.
Joe says the points up with that show weird.
Are we talking Phineas and Ferb?
No, Steven Universe.
Okay, I was about to say because I'm pretty liberal.
Oh, I've
No, I take that back. Phineas and Ferb's mom is hot.
I've unfortunately seen the adult beverages of Phineas and Ferb, and they are not.
That's the most obscene use of triangles you could ever come up with.
Yes. Let's just say I
I was
immediately
about to
just
say.
I noped myself out of that place and cleared my browser history when I saw a Doofenshmirtz and Perry the Platypus.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No, I can see Doofenshmirtz being like some kind of like freak god. I could see that, but you involve Perry. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Though I do admit, the sheer craziness that you could probably do with it I would laugh for about the first 10 seconds, and then I'd start feeling really bad.
Which is exactly what I did. I
Like-
laughed. Which is exactly what I did. I laughed for a second, and then I went, nope, and backed out.
I don't want to know.
Nope, you don't want to know, bro.
Right on the nose,
You
dude.
don't want to know.
Right on the friggin' nose. And I love Phineas and Ferb. I really do. So it's one of those ones where you just go like, I just don't know. Just not that one. Come on, guys. There's a bunch of them. Garfield and Odie, whatever. Don't touch Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, the Steven Universe, then, which I love Steven Universe. We love
Steven
it.
Universe
But
is ripe with off-kilter relationships, so I can kind of see that.
Well, the thing is, people become so protective of
Unbelievably
yeah
so.
of this stuff because of the fact that the creators allow themselves to be a bit more public, and so they take that into basically going.
Oh, they
Since
want to be
they're-
friends.
Yeah, since they stepped over this line, I can step to this line.
It's like,
Um,
no, it's simple. Thank you everyone for showing up, but no, unless you're invited over to our house.
yeah.
No, I'm sorry. There's a line.
It's like we were talking about earlier. Well, that's kind of a different story. But yeah, with Steven Universe, the fandom actually drove a girl to nearly commit suicide. She
And
actually,
that's
she
too
actually
much.
attempted suicide.
That's just too
All
much.
because she drew Rose Quartz a little skinny. That literally was the reason why. Not saying
I wonder if people realize that it's hard to draw characters in the first place, and it's incredibly easy to just get something off model. Slash, this sounds funny to some people. It actually is difficult if you don't know what you're doing to draw a character in any other way than how you're used to drawing the last character. You know,
yeah. And it's like
it was stupid, right,
yeah,
man?
It was very bad, and aside from that, the fandoms are just it's getting better because I mean heck, the Steven Universe fandom, the Brony fandom. Don't get me into that one. I know way too much about that one with the craziness that happens with that. Well, like I just told you, like yeah,
The fact
earlier,
that there's a literal Nazi My Little Pony sect
which is
where you're
actually-
like, what?
which is right now in the middle of a huge controversy.
I would
Because
imagine.
one of the biggest My Little Pony art site did a stand of we're not going to allow this content, and then they pulled back saying we are going to allow this content because free speech, in which then everyone argued back, no, hate speech is not considered protected, and it was going back and forth. Long story short, there's a giant argument. A group broke off to make their own site where they can exclusively post racist and Nazi and horrible transphobic.
On My Little
and-
Pony, friendship is
Yes!
magic.
Yes, love and tolerate. You know.
Just no, it works. Just replace all the word friendship in the series with Hitler.
Well, you're
It totally makes sense
no.
then.
Fascism is magic.
I just don't get it. Guys, it's cartoons. It's like, and I'm saying that this doesn't make more sense, but in a way it does. If there was a fascist Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fandom, I'd be like, at least there's violence in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. At least there's a scary Darth Vader villainy character. But
There- in My Little Pony, there are several of those.
okay, I'll take that
Yeah,
point back.
and
You're right.
there is violence. I mean, there was one entire.
I take it back.
Yeah.
You're right. I stopped watching fairly early on, and the stuff I caught later did actually have some like pony head button and kicking and stuff
Yeah,
going
there
on.
was actually one entire sequence where Twilight and the huge centaur bad guy named Tirek actually had a Dragon Ball Z. And
that
he-
was the
and
one
he
I
actually-
caught.
he
Yeah,
filmed-
I was going like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been some pretty like oh wow, they actually went there moments. Good for them. But anyway.
Well,
Don't
no,
say-
it's one of those things where the whole '80s mentality of, no, don't have anything actually hit anything. It's like that doesn't reflect reality at all. And I realize it's a cartoon, but come on, a little bit of connection to reality, a little bit of people's characters' feelings getting hurt or getting bruised or whatever.
Right.
It's not gonna hurt kids. They get it. There's bullies at school and stuff. I mean, they get it. You know, it's not.
And the thing is, I understand the whole. I understand.
I get it.
It's the Chris Rock. It ain't right.
But I understand. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, it's like I can see wanting to keep kids away from
Sure.
things just to make so. First of all, so they won't emulate it. Second of all, to make sure
Sure.
that they understand what's going on, and all.
Yeah, but sometimes they can't understand unless there's consequences on screen. Is where I come from.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
It's like if they're watching something that has a degree to it, you should be there to make sure that they understand, or if they come with questions, which unfortunately a lot of kids don't, because I didn't go to my parents with questions when I would see stuff because
Well, I think some personalities just don't do that.
yeah, and that was with me. I'm the youngest of 7 kids.
80s G.I. Joe.
I didn't ask questions because I was basically told what to do. And with me, it was like any questions that I had, it was either you should already know or you'll learn.
You should already know is never a response that a child should ever receive. That makes no sense.
But the thing is, though, with the you already
How would a child already know?
But that's the thing, though. I'm saying with that, that was for me. That was my own. That was self-inflicting for me.
Oh, that was you said that to yourself.
Yeah,
Someone.
because,
Okay, that makes way more. I'm
I
going
want,
like that's a horrible person.
Yeah, because I read a lot. I looked at a lot of stuff. I looked up a lot of things because I wanted to know. And so for something I didn't know, I would be like, well, I should already know this. Why don't blah 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 and stuff. But yeah, 80s G.I. Joe. That was. I still love your mom's reaction to whenever she's like, I never should have let you watch those cartoons.
Mom was a farm girl, and she had a different perspective on things.
I just love the reaction. I love that.
And it was a very funny reaction.
Yeah, I love that. She just the look on her face with the. I never should have let you watch those cartoons.
Man, I tell you, the show is
So
flawed.
funny.
The show is flawed. And I've known some people that were in the anime industry, and their opinion of American animation in that time period was toy commercials and blah, blah, blah. They kind of dismiss it. And there's some criticism there that's valid, because that is true to a certain degree. There was some magic in G.I. Joe and He-Man and some of those shows. And I'm not saying that they were perfect. There's criticisms that are valid. But there's some stuff that they did that He-Man is one of the few shows, She-Ra included in there, that looked and acted the way it did. Whether you like it or not, that's fine. But it had its thing. G.I. Joe had its thing. And some of the G.I. Joe over-the-topness, magic. Some of the writing sucked. Some of the episodes were really bad.
Right.
Period. Ain't gonna argue it. My first really strong female character was in G.I. Joe, and it was Lady J. Scarlet early on, she was pretty good, but Lady J specifically, because when they introed her with Flint, she punched out an admiral. I was like, even as a kid, I was like, oh, yeah. That's an awesome chick right there. So they're not perfect shows. Including, by the way, exactly the 80s G.I. Joe, and you just said, man, is there... I'm not for the entire cast getting slaughtered, and I don't think that people have to get injured and die all the time in stories.
Right.
But when there's that many firefights and explosions and stuff, you at least want to see a background dude get hit or something. Mm-hmm. And the times where they did actually put some weight on stuff, Snake Eyes getting caught in the irradiated crystal mines... Okay, fine. He didn't die, fine. But when I was a kid, I was like, this was me. And I was sitting there, as the credits were rolling, I was like, oh my god, Snake Eyes. Holy crap. Where's this going? You're like, totally go like, I gotta catch tomorrow's episode. Obviously by design, obviously. But, I mean, it was kind of awesome. And anime showed us a bunch of really good stuff, but it also showed us a bunch of really bad stuff, too. Every country has goods and bads, and I kind of just wanted to take all the bad and shove it just out of the way. And then grab the good stuff and be like, okay, yes, let's just say 60% of G.I. Joe is unwatchable. And I've tried rewatching some of it. Some of it is unwatchable. Some of the original miniseries... Yes, with a couple writing issues here and there, were really fun. He-Man, really fun. Original She-Ra, really fun. New She-Ra, really, really fun. Some of the G.I. Joe remakes, Resolute, was amazing.
That was incredible.
What I loved was they did the first season of Resolute, and you didn't realize that they were doing mass device. They had completely reworked the whole original story from the original G.I. Joe and masked the fact that they were doing mass device. And when I caught that, I was like, this is so good.
was the
Yeah,
first,
G.I. Joe the movie.
the first flush from getting shot.
I'm not saying it's the greatest movie, but it is fun. It is the G.I. Joe movie, not the live action. No, I'm not going to talk about the live action. I don't know about the sequels to all I saw was chunks of the Hollywood live action G.I. Joe. Talk about something where they should have gone back and looked at some of the cartoons.
Oh, we can watch G.I. Joe Resolute again. It's on Tubi.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
G.I. Joe Resolute is on Tubi, meaning it's free. It's free.
Yes.
It's so much fun.
Fist of North Star.
You know what? I love Fist, but I got to admit, I have moved on to JoJo's. But there's so much about Fist that is super cool. It is. It's just there's so. But for whatever reason, I'm just not getting into watching it like I used to. But man, JoJo's. I think it's because JoJo's is so freaking
it's
whacked.
It's filling your need.
Like when I'm into a Mad Max mood, I'm into a Fist of the North Star mood for obvious reasons. But most of the time, I'm just in for like novelty, and that's JoJo's. When I'm in for like gritty mythology, I get into Fist. When I'm in for crazy, wild, entertaining, big dumb fun, I go for like G.I. Joe or He-Man or something, and or Scooby-Doo's Laugh Olympics.
Yeah.
I don't care if anyone else likes it.
It's
Scooby-Doo's Laugh Olympics.
It's silly.
That's got a
and
place in
fun.
my heart, man.
It's silly and fun.
It's good stuff.
Like Joe says Duke was supposed to die, and they wrote him back in the end. Yeah, yep. In the original,
I believe it was the Canadian release. He stayed
Yeah,
dead,
yeah,
and
he
then
actually- the
because
American-
America is so amazing,
Hey.
we couldn't stand Duke dying.
hey guys, Duke's alive.
Yay! Completely off camera. So stupid.
Yeah, they were
Even
all-
as a kid, I was like, the first time I saw it, I went, I think he's dead. I think they're trying to trick me.
They were crying tears of joy that he was alive. Suckers. Like, really, guys? Really?
I actually find that to be irresponsible. The whole "no, he survived" thing. No, I actually found that to be
it was
irresponsible.
it was disingenuous.
Well, it's not it's also irresponsible. It's funny. I found out the guy that did the comic books for G.I. Joe thought this, and I always thought this.
I know his name.
Yeah, he's the Japanese war veteran guy.
Yeah, that's why he got into it. Yeah.
But he was always like, no, I found it disgusting that people weren't hit and injured in the G.I. Joe cartoon because that's irresponsible. Because you should never shoot a gun at somebody without consequences. And I'm like, I agree. I'm not saying that you should do like a RoboCop Ed 209 sequence every single time, but
Larry Hama.
Larry, thank you.
Yes.
But I end up looking at it going like, no, I think consequence is an integral part of a story. Fine, tone the consequence down if it's for little kids. I get that. You shouldn't do like genocide sequences for little kids. Unless it's in Kung Fu Panda.
Or Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Or Avatar: The Last Airbender. No, I take it back. I take it back absolutely. They both did a great job of essentially genocide. In Airbender, literally, in Kung Fu Panda, figuratively.
Yeah.
But it was still there.
Yeah, Kung Fu Panda 2 did a really great job with that. Yeah.
Well, I love the villain in that one.
Oh, and the villain was amazing. He was good.
He was damaged.
Mm-hmm.
He was horrendously damaged. There was something just wonderfully wrong with that dude.
Yeah.
You almost felt bad for him.
Yeah.
Not entirely, because he asked for pretty much everything that happened to him. But you're like, something's wrong with this dude. This peacock, there's something wrong with this dude.
Something not clicking in his brain.
Something was not clicking in that peacock's brain, that's right.
Well, that's the. I think it clicked. Unfortunately, it snapped. That
It,
was the problem.
it completely snapped, yeah.
He thought he was going to be this huge heir, and then it's like, no, dude, his parents even told him, dude, you're going too far. And he.
What's what I loved about it is
berserk.
the scene where his own family looked at him in horror. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that was so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah, it was. Which Kung Fu Panda? That was Kung Fu Panda 2, Joe.
That was number 2.
Yep, that was
Three was fun.
3 was okay.
One was great.
Yep.
2 had
2 was amazing.
2 was amazing. 3 was all right. It ended stuff. It did things. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it wasn't as strong as number 2.
3, in my opinion, they did it.
It was okay. They tried to end it.
Well, that and they made it.
It was all right.
They tried to bring it back. They made it for kids. I'm gonna put
It was very kidified.
Yeah, because they wanted to. I guess they wanted to.
They
make
also
it a bit
Power
more,
Rangered it a little bit.
Yeah, I think they wanted to make it a bit more lighthearted because how heavy 2 was.
2 had some content in it.
Oh man, 2 was.
2 had some ugly, not in a really visceral way, but in an emotional way. There was ugliness in number 2, and the humor was still there, which made it like kids could obviously watch it.
And the fact that the main villain, of course, was Lord Shin. Of course, Shin being Japanese for death. 3 had the better story. 2 was better animated and presented. I don't know.
I think that's a matter of taste, because I do see what you're saying. There was interesting story stuff in 3. Mm-hmm. My taste goes towards thinking that number 2 had the better story.
I agree.
Because this is not a matter of anyone being right or wrong. This is a matter of taste.
Yeah.
I have a personal tendency of not caring for we're going to go fly into the spirit world and all of the crazy spirit shenanigans. Last Airbender series is one of the few exceptions I have, because they did such a good job with it. And the Miyazaki stuff, when they do some of that, sometimes I really enjoy it. The thing that I liked about number 2 was, for me, it reflected stuff that had happened in the real world in history. So I could watch it and just go like, man, this stuff has happened before. Yeah. And you kind of go like, and is there some things here and there in both movies that could be tweaked to make them better? Yeah. In actuality, the only movie that couldn't be tweaked was the first one. The first one was about as perfect as you could get for what it was.
Right.
But number 2, there was dark ugliness in number 2. The amount
of characters that they killed off.
My favorite bit was not the dark-wise. That was not characters killed off. It was Croc and Ox back in the prison, going like, no, everything we believe in is dead. Right. We're just going to stay here and rot in jail because their souls had been so defeated. And I was going like, oh, that's some ugliness right there, where
that's
you take like, that's rough, buddy, where you take the Kung Fu masters and you defeat them to the point where they're like, we can fight back, but we choose not to because we don't believe in what we're doing anymore. You're like, oh,
we're tired,
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's in my youth I didn't get it right. Now I'm trying to view everything in everybody's opinions. I think matters. Whether it directly I agree with it or not is an entirely different matter. But there wasn't anything wrong with the third Kung Fu Panda movie. It's just it wasn't my exact style. I loved the first one. I very much enjoyed the second one. And, I thought the third one was good, but it got a little spirity for me. And I'm kind of in the real world kind of a person. So when somebody does magic, it has to really be well done for me to like it. Because I just don't get into it that much.
I see what you're saying for your personal taste wise.
Yeah, that's personal taste.
And for me, as a person who does look and see the spiritual thing aspect, for me, I wanted to see more. To me, they did such a very baseline, scratch the surface spirit thing.
Well, theirs was sort of like action spirit stuff.
Well, it felt to me, it felt a little.
Which is fine.
It felt a little empty, which of course they had to do because they didn't. You can't burden kids with that kind of stuff.
Not to mention, how do you build that stuff up? China is legitimately a different culture. You can't just skim over stuff and kind of go, culture grenade, and then fling it in, then either have everybody not understand or do like a super super shallow version of it. You know,
which is
it's like
yeah.
let's go into Africa, tell an African myth, and then expect everyone in America to understand all the cultural values and stuff. You could probably do it on a very baseline level, but to really get it, I've been watching anime for how long, and the Japanese still surprise me with like how they think and what they do, and you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's people in America that I don't get.
You and me both.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is you go to certain parts of America and they don't think remotely like me at all, and so then you go to the other side of the planet. So it's like I feel as if they get a pass, simply put, on the whole, spirituality thing being like simplified, because that's a tall order. It's like taking somebody from China and then introducing them to American brand Christianity. They're going to get lost. They just are, because there's brands of Christian in America that I bump into and I'm like, what? I was raised in this and I don't know what you're talking about. So
There's so much tied back to feudal China. Yeah, yeah.
well, there's just so much history and cultural everything when you do a big shift like that, and it's like Kung Fu Panda, I think, did a good job of doing a general, here's a tiny slice of China, boom, Kung Fu action, go have fun with it. And there just comes a point where, simply put, sorry, I just started feeling something, and simply put, the audience has to have a oversimplification to get them through the story. We have a Taiwanese, Thailand. One of the dudes at work right now, I'm blanking, but he has. I wanted to be able to call him by his proper given name. He's like, well, you don't want that because you're gonna have a hard time pronouncing it. And I'm like, well, okay, because I never liked it when you've got some guy from China coming over here and go like, just call me George. I'm like, I'd rather at least try to call you by your proper name. In the case of this guy, and he's an awesome dude, he was like, in actuality, we have, I think he said something like 20-some consonants that you don't have. And I'm like, oh, he's like, yeah. It's like, it's actually a matter of just making it easy on everybody. I was like, all right, so I've kind of backed away from because I kind of felt like respecting somebody, on a base level, which to me is like saying their actual name. But then I realized what he had described was like, no, you're going to want to just use the base name that I kind of give you, and I'm good with that. I'm like, oh, okay. But when you in some cases can't even pronounce names, I mean, the difference is that huge in some cases, and I just want to respect people.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that the respect is hard; it's the connecting fully, because sometimes the backgrounds are so different, and it's like, as much as I love Japanese stuff, there's moments where I'm like, I don't actually know how blank and whatever you're talking about works,
Yeah, it goes so culturally deep. You're like,
Yeah, there's like a mega cultural difference, and you just want to respect people on a human level and be like, all right, there's a difference. We'll just kind of settle on that, and I'll try to learn more in the future. Blah blah blah.
I honestly thought you were gonna do Angry Donald.
I'm just honestly just sketching at this point and not even really thinking about it. Because I kind of was going to do something, and then there was just something about the expression that worked, so I just kept going with it. Not.
It's funny. It's. I've talked to a few artists when it comes to doing like animal characters, and So a lot of them are just like, you know what the weirdest thing? Duck bills are really hard to draw.
Did you say duck girls?
Duck bills.
Duck bills are a little difficult.
Yeah, it's like,
I use the same tricks that I use for baseball caps.
Exactly. And that's actually one of my recommendations. I tell people, it's like, okay, I was like, have you ever drawn a baseball cap? They're like, no, that's a cool thing. Look at a
Draw
baseball
baseball
cap.
caps, yeah. And fedoras and any kind of a hat with a brim.
Anything that does the swoop,
curvy brim.
Yeah, swoopy curve like that, under curve basically.
But yeah, it's just, I just try to accept everybody from where they're coming from, which is sometimes is difficult. But it's like we watched when we had movie night before the plague. A friend of mine brought over a Chinese animated movie, and it was beautifully done, but culturally speaking, its rhythm was so different than I was used to that I was constantly off kilter as to when it was going to end. I literally could not figure out when it was going to end. I thought it ended like 7 times. And then it kind of kept going. And I was like, oh. And then I thought it was going to kind of end. And it kept going. And I was like, oh. I'm like, because they just used this rhythm that was, it wasn't alien. It was just different enough that I was kind of off kilter constantly.
Right.
I actually ended up enjoying it, but it was a little like, oh, you know. I can't remember the name of it. It was another kind of spirity sort of one.
Yeah,
Which also made it a little tough for me because I either really love that stuff or just totally it falls flat. Because it's there's just nothing wrong with it. It just, for whatever reason, has to be really well done for me to like it. Which is silly because some of the sillier stuff that I watch has magic in it. I'm totally good with it. Like, I love John Constantine in Legends of Tomorrow. And I think it's because he's totally, like, into, like, going over the top with the crazy incantations and stuff. And then there's some hand waviness, and there's blood on his face, and, you know, he's drinking Rasputin and just doing crazy wild stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of like JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. He's just going super wacky, you know. And then a devil goes, ah, and disappears, and, you know, I'm like, it just kind of works for me for whatever reason. Then I see other stuff with magic in it, I kind of go like, I guess I either want it super silly or super well developed. Something in between just doesn't work for me, I guess. Not sure why that is exactly. Yeah, be honest with you, I'm not sure why that expression turned out that way. I'm not going to put too much thought into it because I am still on staycation.
Somebody just had a funny thought. My dad had a tattoo from when he was in the Navy on his arm, and it was a duck. And the duck was pointing at himself and just had this baffled look on his face and just says, "Who, me?" And so, yeah, exactly. So
there must have been a story behind that.
I'm getting to.
Okay.
And so I would keep looking as a kid, look at it and stuff. So finally, I'm like, Daddy, what's this mean? And my dad, my dad was pretty much a straight shooter. He didn't hold anything back, and I think honestly that part of his brain the inner monologue switch was turned off.
Sure.
Sure. All this stuff. And I was like, what is he talking about? And he just looks at his arm, looks at me, and he's like, well, this apparently some other duck this girl duck got pregnant. And she said that he was the father. And he's like, who, me?
Wow.
Telling this to a 6-year-old.
Wow, Dad. Wow. That suddenly makes a lot of sense. Oh, me?
Once again, one of the reasons why I am the way I am. It's because of my dad. But yeah, that always just cracked me up, and it's like that. His expression sort of kind of almost reminds me of that, because if he had like furrowed brows, that would be nearly the expression that was on my dad's tattoo. But man, and it was one of like the traditional, just like got it done probably at some weird place or something, because it was green and kind of faded after a while.
Sure, yeah.
Because he had that one, and then he had another one on this other arm, which I don't remember what it was. I know he had at least two. One on his arm. I think he had one on his bicep, and then he had the one on the duck on his forearm. Make sure there wasn't any mix-ups on the Facebook page, so we got everybody that should be listed. Excuse me.
Santoast has followed.
Hello,
Santoast. Not sure what.
Like
Santoast.
like sand.
Without toast. That is sad.
So it's like, is it sand toast or sand toast? Like SANTOS?
S-A-N. San. Ooh, wait. No. My glasses are bad. Santoaste? No, looks like Santoast.
Spell it.
S-A-N-T-O-A-T-O-A-S-T-E. Sanotoste.
Santoaste.
Or, no, it would be sans toast if it was no toast. That's just sad. No one should be sans toast. Unless they wish to be.
Unless they're particularly gluten intolerant, which is even more sad, because gluten toast is horrible.
I'm sure there might be some pretty good stuff out there, but I know I've never had it, so.
Like I said, I'd like to see what it is.
All right. Everyone have yourself a good week. Next week I should hopefully be clean shaven and mostly dressed.
You gotta do your officials.
I know. I gotta get there.
Excuse me, princess. See, you didn't do the kissies. See?
Oh, by God,
See,
I
that's
didn't.
what I was trying to tell
Oh,
you to
crap.
do.
Oh,
Look at
crap.
you. Look at you. Look at you.
I am pathetic.
You apologize to me right
I
now.
am so sorry.
You-
All right, as is tradition. I've been on staycation too long. As is tradition. When two well-dressed ducks face each other. In my sketchbook. Yeah, there's some other details that are important, but when they become sealed in my sketchbook forever, it is sealed with a kiss. Oh. Oh, Daffy and Donald.
Forever.
Take it.
Bill's locked in eternity.
That was always something I had a problem with as a kid. Like, how do Bills kiss? You know?
They're pliable. They're cartoon pliable, named Mole.
Oh, sure.
Joe says, darn it, I can't speak Donald's middle name. What, Fauntleroy? Yeah, Donald's middle name is Fauntleroy.
Is it really? How did I miss that information?
Because I'm a weird cartoon nerd.
Oh.
This is why she...
It's true. Only I can do the sucky cheeky sound.
I know, and it just... I can't do it, and it's one of the things that just makes me laugh every single time.
I'm sure other people can do it. I'm not even sure why I can do it.
Because it's fun.
Because it's funny. Anywho, have yourself a good week, man. We will be catching you later.
Thanks